Hey, hey, can y'all hear me? What's up? Okay, I can hear myself. So, little introduction. I'm Joey. All right, so I have a slide up here. Look, you'll notice the same picture that Austin shared last week. I also love disc golf, and I love these guys. They're awesome. Those are my friends. I love my wife, Becca. She's somewhere in here. Her parents are here, my in-laws. So there's my family, freshman year of college, up in the right corner. For the last 4 years, that was at UTD, so that's my alma mater. And then for the last 4 years, I've been at Richland College. Go Thunder Ducks, quack, quack. We don't really have a hand sign, you know? We were just talking, and we're like, we don't really do a quack. I don't know. And so I actually have some news. If you're a Richland student, I'm really sorry if you haven't heard this before, but I tried to tell all of you, but I'm actually transitioning back to UTD this upcoming year. Yeah, I'm sorry, Caleb. I told you right before the service started. So hopefully none of you are surprised. I love you. Goodbye. Okay, I have another slide here. So when I was a little kid, I was given, that's what I looked like, okay? I still wear those, whatever that's called on the right. So you can see on the top of both pictures, a quilt, okay? So I was given a quilt. It's the exact one is actually in this picture. That's my sister's quilt in that picture. Anyway, I was given that when I was born, and I slept with it for every single night. I was super attached. It was like my comfort item, right? Did y'all have a comfort item? So maybe it was like a binky, blanket, stuffed animal. That's what I'm talking about. So this was mine. As I grew older, it got tattered and gross. It was peed on 100 times. I peed the bed, so way too late. So yeah. So everyone has comfort items, I feel like. They're security blankets, comfort objects, loveys, whatever you want to call them. Some people call them transitional objects. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that. I'm not an expert in psychology at all, but I think we had this, all of us. And maybe we still do. Does any of you guys still have your comfort item? You don't have to out yourself. Thankfully, I've grown out of the need for my comfort quilt. I don't sleep in that anymore. Becca would not allow it, in case you're wondering. And I don't mean to pick on anyone with comfort items currently. Truthfully, I have a new thing, okay? It's not the quilt anymore, but it's actually a little more serious than carrying around a blanket. So here's my comfort item. And maybe you guys relate to this. It's entertainment and like numbing out time, right? Couch potato time. It feels to me like I need a minimum of 30 minutes to kind of decompress watching something before I go to bed at night. Maybe my favorite sport, disc golf, maybe a sitcom, random YouTube videos. I just want to turn my brain off, go numb, catatonic. That's peace to me. And it does affect me and other people around me negatively. Even though 30 minutes a night may be harmless, but there's not a day that goes by, I'm telling you, where I don't think about my rest time, where I'm not planning out the next time that I'm going to lounge around and numb out. And being totally honest, I think in the background of my life and my brain is just a constant, like, when am I going to relax? When am I going to have me time? Where is it coming from? I need my next, itch. So I'm barely aware of it most of the time, but it's there. And sometimes, at my worst, I have like a tight, controlling grip on this part of my life. And I know my grip is tight because if something comes up that disrupts my, me time, my like internal plan for rest, all of a sudden I'm anxious, I'm fearful, I feel tired, I'm cranky. And I worryingly try to come up with a scrap plan for comfort. It gives me a bad attitude about whatever I'm being pulled, to do away from my me time. This affects my wife because I usually want to say no when she asks me to do things with her that conflict with my comfort time. I don't hang out with friends as much as I could because sometimes I'm just tired, and all I can think about is laying on the couch. I notice myself procrastinating important things at times. I just want to make sure I get my entertainment before I do hard work. I'm protecting that little piece of my life, like that thing. And the problem is that at the end of the day, I just really, in my heart, believe that I need this thing. My heart struggles to believe I will even have life without that. And I'm not pointing a finger at entertainment. I'm actually not even pointing a finger at rest or anything else, but I think the problem for me is that I'm grasping for security, safety, stability, and not trusting God. So I see this pattern come up, not just with entertainment, but other areas of my life. And I'm tempted to take control of these things. For example, I want to make sure everyone likes me. I obsess about my weight. I don't want to share my weaknesses with others. I mostly only do things that I'm pretty good at already. I don't budget my finances, so I feel more, free to spend, right? In order to feel secure, stable, safe, I tend to take control of these areas of my life as much as possible, which puts me in a position where I'm not relying on God, but rather taking matters into my own hands. The feeling of security, it's a weird thing. So I want to be clear what I'm saying and what I'm not saying. I'm not talking about avoiding any danger or physical risk or threat at all. Last week, Austin, he talked about how Jesus says, "In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world." So we just know that Jesus says you can't avoid trouble. Jesus couldn't avoid trouble. Trusting God obviously does not exclude us from that. It doesn't change the fact that we can be in danger or risk, etc. But I'm more talking about an emotional inner sense of security. A common need, I think, we all have to feel safe, supported, stable, and secure. And I think this searching for security and stability is so common because there's so much to be afraid of in this world. Some of us are afraid of being judged. We're afraid others will react harshly to any mistake we make and the embarrassment that comes with it. We fear what others may think about us. And this is my thing. Remember I said I want people to like me, I obsess about my weight, don't want to share weaknesses, etc. Some of us are afraid of the unknown. We really like clear parameters. We want things in a box. We want to understand it. We want to know exactly what is expected from us so we can do a good job in school, work, relationships, even with God. And for some of us, it's the fear of losing control. Life feels really safe when I can do it my way and have everything work the way I want. We treat life like a video game, where if we just play correctly, we will defeat the boss at the end. We could never lose. But the truth is, we aren't in control, right? And for many of us, that causes so much frustration. Just endless. Try to take control, frustration, because it doesn't work. And ultimately, I think that's the problem, is we end up obeying what we fear. We grasp for security in all the wrong places, holding on to things with a tight grip that were never ours to begin with, that we can't hold on to. It's not just us, though. Thousands of years ago, God's people were grasping for security too. So look at Exodus 16 with me. Okay, some of you might know the story, but some might not. So I'm just going to summarize it for us. The Israelites were enslaved by the Egyptian people for over 400 years, and God uses a man named Moses as a leader to free them. And this awesome Exodus moment happens, right, where they escape. It's a story most of us have heard. All the Israelite people are free from Egypt. God parts the Red Sea. It's amazing. Go read Exodus sometime if you haven't. It's amazing. So the Israelite people flee from Egypt. They're safe on the other side of a sea, so the Egyptians can't even get them anymore. They're rejoicing, they're celebrating, God has rescued them, it's miraculous. Generations have gone by and they were enslaved. So they're singing songs of praise, full of hope. They're like, this is it. This is the God. So let's look at Exodus 16. Okay. In the desert, they find themselves in the desert. A whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The Israelites said to them, If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. But you have brought us out into the desert to starve this entire assembly to death. We all know the desert's hot, miserable, bare. Can you imagine wandering around it with your whole family for like thousands of people? You're all like moving in the desert. So God hears their complaint about food, right? And the next one, he says, "Then the Lord said to Moses, I will rain down bread from heaven for you. The people are to go out each day and gather enough for that day. In this way, I will test them and see whether they will follow my instructions." So the people are given very specific instructions about how to collect this bread, which they end up calling manna, right? Some of you all heard that. They're only to get enough for that day. But verse 17, the Israelites did as they were told. Some gathered much, some little. And when they measured, the one who gathered much did not have too much, and the one who gathered little did not have too little. Everyone had gathered just as much as they needed. Then Moses said to them, "No one is to keep any of it until morning." So they have the manna, not allowed to keep it for more than a day. However, some of them paid no attention to Moses. They kept part of it until morning, but it was full of maggots and began to smell. So Moses was angry with them. So what is the problem here in that cute little story? We see God delivering on his end of the deal. He's taking care of their needs day by day, right? And they still don't really trust him. They go out and they're getting daily miracles in a desert where there's nothing else to eat, but they would rather take things into their own hands. Happens over and over and over again. They grasp for security, stability, safety, and they end up with maggoty, disgusting bread. Let me ask you this. Have you ever been surprised when something worked out well for you? Have you ever had that feeling of like, oh my gosh, that was so much better than I thought it was going to be? In 35, it says, the Israelites ate manna for 40 years. Until they came to a land that was settled, they ate manna until they reached the border of Canaan. For 40 years straight, day by day, they're receiving a miracle. Oh my gosh. But these people who grasp for security, well, they don't get the lesson all the time. Oftentimes they end up with moldy bread. I wonder how many of them anxiously wander around the desert that whole 40 years, never trusting when they would get their next meal. I wonder how many of them fearfully wondered if they would die when they ate the manna for the day and looked forward to their future. I wonder if they thought they would die from dehydration or overheating, etc., and God wouldn't provide the next time. I find that extremely relatable. Maybe you do too. I'm like, what a perfect metaphor for my specific life. It's almost like the Bible knows something about the nature of people. How many of you feel like God has rescued you from something at some point in your life? I do. How many of you feel like you have been a slave to something in your life? I definitely do. And how many of you feel like you've been in the desert now or before at any time in your past, and you didn't know when your next physical or spiritual, metaphorical, etc. meal would come? I know that feeling. God has a response to the Israelite people. I think Isaiah 46 sums it up, and he speaks plainly to the lesson he was giving to them. Remember, these are people that he rescued from slavery and adopted unto his own and provided for day by day for 40 years straight. It's on a slide here. I'll read it for us, but you can look. Listen to me, you descendants of Jacob, all the remnant of the people of Israel, you whom I have upheld since your birth and have carried along since you were born. Even to your old age and gray hairs, I am he. I am he who will sustain you. I have made you. and I will carry you. I will sustain you, and I will rescue you. That's what God is like. So what's the takeaway? I put it into a sentence for us. You don't have to grasp for security when you trust God. You don't have to grasp for security when you trust God. But what I see in myself and in many of us in this room is that when we feel insecure, we don't trust God. It's really hard to respond to insecurity with trust. It's much easier to respond the way the Israelites did. Remember back the first thing I read, in the desert, the whole community grumbled against Moses and said, if we only had died, by the Lord's hand. So God is doing miracles among them in their midst daily, and they're grumbling. He saved them from slavery, parted the Red Sea miraculously, leads them by fire by night and pillar by day through the desert. They have manna to eat in the morning, and they're grumbling because they're not content. I don't know what they wanted. Maybe they wanted more. Maybe they wanted the assurance that they were going to get the thing the next day. Or they wanted 2 days in a row. Or 3 days in a row? Or a whole week at a time so that way they could know they'd be fine for a week? I don't know. But they weren't content trusting day by day. They don't trust God. Erica's sermon a few weeks ago, it's like that. They don't believe that what God has to offer is really good news. Remember her saying that? They just don't really think that they can trust him and what he has is enough. And the grumbling continues and continues. It shows up 6 more times in this passage, remains a theme throughout the first 5 books of the Bible, and it's almost as if God knows something about us, that we are prone to grumble and not put our trust in him. Grumbling is just the passive-aggressive form of seeking control. We may not actively fight against God, but a lot of us here are grumblers. And we're going to make it real clear that we have a bad attitude, That's us. But Jesus, he lived out, you don't have to grasp for security when you trust God. Let me tell you about Jesus. When he was tested in the wilderness, he doesn't grasp for what Satan tempted him with. Instead, he lets go and trusts God. When his friends betray him, he doesn't control. He offers mercy. When Jesus is captured, beaten, facing death on the cross, he just doesn't take matters into his own hands. He surrenders his life to God. In John 6, it's recorded that Jesus says, I have it on a slide here, our ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness. As it is written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat. Jesus said to them, very truly I tell you, it is not Moses who has given you the bread from heaven, but it is my Father who gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is the bread that comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. Sir, they said, always give us this bread. That sounds awesome. Then Jesus declared, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. At this, the Jews there began to grumble about him because he said, I'm the bread that came down from heaven. Stop grumbling among yourselves, Jesus answered. Then in 53, Jesus said to them, very truly I tell you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will raise them up at the last day. For my flesh is real food, and my blood is real drink. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood remains in me, and I in them. Just as the living Father sent me, and I live because of the Father, so the one who feeds on me will live because of me. This is the bread that came down from heaven. Your ancestors ate manna and died, but whoever feeds on this bread will live forever." He said this while teaching in the synagogue in Capernaum. Guys, you, like me, we desperately need security and safety. We need to know that we are going to be okay. This week, I was talking to one of my friend's wives who works in a retirement home, and I asked her, "What's the biggest lesson you've learned from the elderly?" I was expecting, hold on to your family, at all costs, or positivity is powerful, or some cliche statement, But her answer shocked me. I'll paraphrase. She was saying, basically over and over again, what she has seen is people try to take control of the end of their lives. They get scared, and they don't want anyone to help them. They can't trust others. They end up falling and hurting themselves because they tried to walk when they shouldn't have walked. They end up taking the wrong medication and sometimes overdose or underdose because they didn't trust their nurse. They wanted to do it themselves. And over again, when they take control, she said they are miserable. They finish their days in agony and insecurity. And she said also that it's only the ones that understand that they are out of control, when they get that, they actually live longer and they're happier in the last days of their life. It's only those who don't reach for control that get to live their last days to the full. What if we were a community that learned that lesson now? I'm not saying be the kind of people that, don't take control in your retirement home. But what if you were the college student that didn't take control? What if when things went wrong, you didn't take matters into your own hands? Worship team, you can start heading up. What if we were a community that learned that lesson now and lived in freedom, not chasing control, not trying to do it ourselves, trusting that God gives every single day? We need security. It's a deep need, part of what it means to be human. But when we take matters into our own hands, I think the irony is we end up hurting ourselves and the people around us. But here's the good news, is that Jesus alone offers a solution. He says, "Eat of me, drink of me. I am the manna in the wilderness that will keep you alive and sustain you and give you life to the full. Eat of me, drink of me, and you will have life." So the question is, will you live your life your way and take control? Or will you accept Jesus' way? Will you accept Jesus' way? He alone offers a solution. In a second, I'm going to lead us in a prayer to close us, and we'll worship. But right now, I want you to close your eyes, and I want each of you to answer that question within yourself, just between you and God. Take a minute to acknowledge God's presence here and answer that question. Will you live your life your way and take control, or will you accept His way? Lord, I pray over our hearts in this room that we would be moved to you. Pray that we would be moved to accept your call, to live your way. Free us from trying to control what we can't control, and give us the wisdom to surrender what we think we have. You are our provider, our sustainer, our source of life. I pray against insecurity. I pray against feeling threatened. Lord, let us have your peace.